Good afternoon. My name is Oliver Johnson, and I am presenting today's TABC Talks. We're going to move straight ahead and get right into it, into the disclaimer. The following agency guidance was developed to improve internal and external communications and ensure a more consistent application of TABC statutes and rules. This guidance reflects appropriate processes, requirements, and interpretations based on the general situations presented herein. This guidance may not apply to every situation. If you have any questions about how this guidance applies to your specific circumstance, please contact TABC directly. So, participation and technical support. You may interact with me by using the chat feature located in the toolbar at the bottom of your presentation. If you experience any technical issues, please visit Zoom's Help Center at https://support.zoom.us/HC. So today's topic is public safety and retail locations. Again, I'm Oliver Johnson. I'm a major assigned to Austin in the Enforcement Division. During this presentation, we will go over enforcement's function, sales to minors, possession by minors, sales to intoxicated persons, sales and consumption during prohibited hours, drugs at licensed locations, breaches of the peace, human trafficking, and then we will have a presentation summary at the end. So let's get right into it. TABC's enforcement agents have authority all across the state of Texas, and they may enter any licensed or permitted location at any time to investigate or inspect that location. When we enter a location, our function and our goals are to look for violations of the Alcoholic Beverage Code committed by holders of TABC's licenses and permits. Violations committed on licensed locations, and we look for violations at prior locations, which are those with a history of public safety violations. So we in enforcement look for 6 priority violations, and they're listed in this presentation: sales to and possession by minors, sales to intoxicated persons, drugs at licensed locations, breaches of the peace, sales or consumption during prohibited hours, and human trafficking. So, violations related to minors. The definition of a minor is a person who is under 21 years of age. Our focus when we're looking for violations to minors is to hold the retailers responsible for their actions, not the minor. Although we do attempt to hold minors responsible for their actions as well. Like if we catch them in possession of alcohol, we will cite them or cite them for attempting to purchase. But our main focus and our main goal is to ensure that retailers are doing the correct thing. So we conduct underage compliance operations at retail locations, and what this consists of, sending an undercover minor into a licensed location to attempt to purchase alcohol. With that minor, there will be 2 undercover police officers who are witnesses, and they ensure the minor's safety, and they also witness the events that happen inside. If there's a sale, they can be witnesses in court or an administrative hearing. Or if there's not a sale, they're witnesses to that as well. So violations related to minors. Selling alcoholic beverage to a minor is a crime. So if you sell alcoholic beverage to a minor with criminal negligence, and what that means, criminal negligence means failure to do something that a reasonable person would do, or doing something that a prudent or reasonable person would not do. For an example, if a very young person attempts to purchase alcohol, or they do purchase alcohol, and a seller does not check their ID, that can be considered criminal negligence. So it is not a violation, though, for sales to minors that display an apparently valid proof of identification that falsely represents them as 21 years of age or older. So if a minor enters a location and they attempt to purchase, or they do purchase alcoholic beverages, it is not a violation to the clerk if they sell, if they present an apparently valid proof of identification that falsely represents them as 21 years of age or older. Now, what that means is you still have to check their ID. You still need to check and make sure that the photo of them is a good representation, or it is their photo, and not someone else. If the person attempted to purchase alcoholic beverages is a 5'6" white male, and the ID is of a 6'5" black male, you will still be charged with selling alcohol to a minor. And you can be charged in two ways. There are administrative consequences for the bar, for the permit holder. And so it goes against their permit or against their license. And so for a first-time violation, you could be suspended from selling alcoholic beverages for 8 to 12 days, or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per suspension day. So if you do make a sale and you get offered an 8-day suspension, in lieu of suspending alcohol sales, you can pay a $2,400 fine. So 3 times 8 is 24. So that's where we get the number from, $300 per suspension day. On the criminal side, the person who is responsible is the individual who sells, serves, dispenses, or delivers alcohol. It's a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by a fine up to $4,000 or up to 1 year in jail to serve, sell, or deliver an alcoholic beverage to a minor. That does not mean that the seller will get the highest punishment. That just means that's what it can go up to. It's all up to the judge and the jury in your case, in your criminal case, if you decide to take it to court. If a license or permanent business sells or serves or delivers alcoholic beverage to a minor, or allows a minor to consume or possess an alcoholic beverage on a licensed premise, there are administrative consequences for the permit holder. For a first-time violation, they can be suspended from selling alcoholic beverages for 3 to 5 days, or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per suspension day. I must also add that our suspensions always start on a Wednesday. So if you get suspended for 3 days, it will be a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday. Or you can pay the $300 for a suspension day. So if we offer you 3 days and you take it, you can pay a $900 fine in lieu of serving the suspension. So we talked a little bit about fake identification, fake IDs. There are several things you can do to help you find fake IDs, right? So feel for imperfections in the document. So this is not 1980. There are no more actual photos. Like when I got my first driver's license, it was laminated and there was an actual photo on the document. There are no more actual photos. So if you feel the document and you feel it's laminated and it has a photo on it, that's probably not a good ID. Look at the ID and make sure the picture matches the person represented presenting it. I spoke about this earlier. Make sure, you know, if the person that is attempting the purchase is a 5'6" white male, make sure that the ID is not a 6'5" black male presenting it to you. I have seen this happen before, where a white male was presenting a black male's ID. The clerk did not sell, but they will try. They're hoping that you're not paying attention. They're hoping that when you ask for ID, that once they present something that you won't even look at it, and you just assume that they wouldn't be lying to you. So please make sure you check the ID, check the photo, and make sure it matches the person presenting it to you. One of the things I like to do is when you're looking at the photo and you're looking at the person, you want to start at the very top of their head. You want to look at their hairline. You want to look at their eyebrows and work your way down as you look at the photo. You want to look at the eyes to make sure that they match, that they look about the same distance apart. Are their eyes off-centered? You want to look at the nose, the width, the thickness, the length. You want to look at the fullness of the lips. You want to look at their chin. Is there a cleft chin in the picture that may say, okay, well, the person has a cleft chin. Also, you want to look at their ears in the photo and on the driver's license, how far they're offset, if they're off center. All those things can help you determine whether it's the person presenting is the person presenting the ID is the person on the ID. You want to look for scars, marks, or tattoos on their face. Maybe they have their name tattooed over their eyebrow, or a scar on their forehead that can help you decide whether or not this is the person on the ID. So you also want to know how and when to refuse a sale. What are your company's policies? How to handle difficult customers, and when to involve a manager to help you prevent a sale to a minor. So next, we're going to move into intoxicated persons. The definition: intoxicated persons having a BAC of 0.08 or more are not having normal use of mental or physical faculties due to alcohol, a controlled substance, a drug, or a combination of these substances. So if a person comes in and they're sitting at your bar and they pop a couple pills and then they drink 2 or 3 beers, and we come in and they seem intoxicated, and we ask them questions, and you say, well, they only had 1 beer. Well, if you look at the last line, it says, or a combination of substances. So it could be the pills and the 1 beer may put them over the top and make them intoxicated. So just because a person has come in and they order 1 beer, and we may walk in to do an inspection, and they seem intoxicated to us, and you say, well, they only ordered one beer, and we're asking questions. You got to remember that whatever substance they had before they came into your bar may contribute to their intoxication level. So even though someone comes in, please pay attention. If this is your first beer you're selling them, please pay attention to their movements. Do they have slurred speech? Are their eyes really red and bloodshot? To make sure that you're not selling to someone who's intoxicated. They could have consumed beer or alcoholic beverages at another place before coming to your bar. So please keep an eye on these symptoms, and that can help you not sell to an intoxicated person. Public intoxication: to appear in a public place, which is a licensed or permitted location, is considered a public place by definition, while intoxicated to the degree that the person may endanger themselves or may endanger others. So the important part for you retailers is selling or serving and delivering alcoholic beverage to an intoxicated person is a violation. And so there are administrative consequences associated with it. And so a permit holder may have his license or permit suspended for a first-time violation for 8 to 12 days, or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per day. And so again, if we offer you an 8-day suspension and you take it, in lieu of serving an 8-day suspension, we will offer you a $2,400 fine. So there are also criminal consequences associated to this violation. They're associated with the individual who serves, sells, or dispenses the alcohol. It's a misdemeanor punishable by up to $500 and up to 1 year in jail. And as we go over all this, I know some of you may have questions. Please keep your questions in mind. And at the end of this presentation, we will have a question and answer session. We will continue with intoxicated persons. And so we want to talk a little bit about intoxicated employees. So an employee of a license or permit holder being intoxicated at the license or permitted location, on or off duty, is a violation. Administrative consequences, so you can be suspended from selling alcoholic beverages for 8 to 12 days or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per day. There's criminal consequences associated. An individual employee intoxicated on a licensed premise could be fined up to $500 or spend up to 1 year in jail. And there are reasons why we don't want employees that are intoxicated on a licensed premise. They tend to have access that normal patrons do not have. They can continue to serve themselves. We've seen where an employee is at a licensed premise and they may become intoxicated and the manager needs help, and they're helping the manager while they're intoxicated, and they are selling to other intoxicated persons. They may be doing things that they won't normally do. They're making a sale to a minor or to an intoxicated person that they may not normally do, but because they're intoxicated, they did make that sale. And that is something that we have seen before. So preventing violations while dealing with intoxicated persons. So some of the signs: leaning against a structure or objects for support, red, watery, bloodshot eyes, droopy eyelids or very tired appearance, slower deliberate movements, slurred speech. If you see somebody that's walking to the bar, to the bathroom and have to use the wall to balance themselves. If they come up to the bar and they're purchasing a drink and you tell them that'll be $20 and they're attempting to give you a credit card and they give you their insurance card because they're not paying attention. If the person is sick and throwing up and you see that, that is a symptom that they may have been overserved. And I say may because they just may be sick. But that's where you need to ask questions. You need to slow down to make that sale, and ensure you observe the person you're selling to if you see any of these violations. Excuse me, not violations, of any of these symptoms. So best retailer practices: do not announce last call. So when you announce last call, that encourages people to rush up and buy a bulk alcohol. If it's last call, I'm going to go up and buy 6 beers or 3 or 4 beers, so I can attempt to get all I can before you stop selling. Don't sell shots or provide bottle service after 1 a.m. If you serve a bottle, people are going to attempt to consume that entire bottle prior to leaving. So it's a short hour. If you sell a 750 milliliter of whiskey and someone consumes that entire bottle or table consumes that entire bottle, it may lead to their intoxication level being very high by the time it's time to close doors. If you do bottle service, just remember you have to sell to a table with at least 2 or more persons. You cannot sell, serve, deliver an entire bottle of distilled spirits to one person. Do not allow promotions that encourage customers to drink to excess. So be careful with your specials. No 25-cent drink specials, but because people will tend to, if you're selling drinks for, even if it's well drinks, I'm going to sell this certain vodka for 25 cents for an hour. People will get highly intoxicated within that hour period. Do not sell or serve drinks in oversized containers after midnight. This goes back to the bottle service after 1. So people are going to try to consume those big drinks before they leave, and it could lead to a high level of intoxication at the end of the night. At 2 a.m., turn the lights on and observe for any intoxicated persons. Those that you find that may be intoxicated, try to find them rides home, or make sure they have a ride home, a safe, sober driver to get them home. And then lastly, have a plan in place to deal with intoxicated customers. I have seen some bars where they'll contract with ride service companies or with cab companies, and have cabs and ride service companies on standby at the end of the night to get people a safe and sober ride home. That's just one of the things that you can do. And you can reach out to your to other permit holders and see what plans they have in place to deal with intoxicated customers. You may not want to do some of the things that they do, but maybe you will, and maybe it will help you prevent someone getting hurt driving off from your location and hurting themselves or another person. So it is a on-premise promotions violations to sell, serve, or offer to sell, serve more than 2 drinks to a customer at a time. And so we here at TBC kind of go by the industry standard. 1 drink of 80 proof liquor, or 40% alcohol by volume, or 1.5 ounces is kind of the standard shot. 1 drink of a standard beer at about 5% alcohol by volume, we consider 12-ounce beer to be a standard beer. And then for wine, 12%, about 5 ounces of wine. And so selling or serving more than 2 drinks to a customer at a time is an administrative violation. Administratively, the base penalty is $500 for the permit holder. And there are some exceptions to the rule. If the meal or alcoholic beverage is part of a hotel or a motel package, where you're going to purchase a couple drinks and go up to your room, or you're consuming these drinks or this food in your room, wine served or sold by the bottle to a customer with a meal, alcoholic beverages sold or served in pitchers or cafes, similar containers, if it's going to more than 2 persons, 2 customers at a time, or there's a private party or charity event held on a hotel premises or a temporary charitable event. So intoxicated persons continue. If an intoxicated person is involved in an accident resulting in a serious bodily injury or death, TABC conducts an investigation to, number 1, determine the source of the alcoholic beverages consumed by the intoxicated person, and to determine if that source violated the law when providing the alcohol. So typically when we say source, we're talking about permit holders. So license or permit holder that is either on premise or off premise. So it could be a convenience store, it could be a restaurant, it could be a private club. If we determine that you sold or served alcoholic beverages to an intoxicated person and it led to the serious bodily injury or death of a person, we will investigate to figure out where the source was, who sold them the alcohol. It could be criminal consequences for the person who sold, and of course, civil and administrative consequences for the permit holder. So we do have a program that's called Safe Harbor, and this program is for licensed or permit holders who may avoid administrative action if an employee sells, serves, or delivers an alcoholic beverage to a minor, an intoxicated person, or a non-member of a club. And so the safe harbor may apply if the employer requires employees to attend and receive certification from a TABC approved seller server training program. All employees engaged in the sales, service, or delivery of alcohol and their immediate managers are certified within 30 days of their hire date. The seller server at fault actually obtained certification, and it is not the owner or the officer of the company. The employee has written policies for responsible alcohol service and consumption and ensures each employee has read and understood these policies. The employer has not directly or indirectly encouraged an employee to violate the law. And there is not more than 2 of these violations within a 12-month period. So if you have written policies, if you certified all your employees within 30 days of their hire date, if the permit holder or license holder is not the one who sold, and you have not had more than 2 of these violations within a 12-month period, you may apply for safe harbor when you have a violation. That does not mean you will get it, but you can apply for it. And what that means is you would not pay a fine or serve a suspension. It would just go on your record, and you would just be on sort of probation. We will come by and check you several times, do several inspections over about a 6-month period to ensure that there are no more violations. And if you don't have any more violations, you will fall out of that probationary period, which we call it priority status. That priority status will go away if we do a certain amount of inspections and we find no violations within a certain period of time. So employees get certification by completing a TABC approved course. We do not put these courses on. This is not TABC putting these courses on. These are third-party companies. We do not recommend any companies, but they have to be certified for it to apply. And what I mean by certified, these companies have to come to us and say, we want to teach this, and they get a license from us to teach this course. All your employees must retake this course every 2 years to maintain this certification. So I know of some permit holders, they use Microsoft Outlook. There are programs out there that you can use to make sure all your employees get recertified every 2 years. Some employees will get everyone certified at one time, and that way they know when time comes up, when the 2 years is getting close, they can get everyone certified again to ensure they have no one that falls through the cracks. So prohibited hours, legal hours for sale of alcohol. So for off-premise retailers, liquor sales, it's 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., excluding New Year's Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas days. Sales are not allowed, including Sunday. So no sales on Sunday as well. So the sales are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., excluding New Year's Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. For off-premise retailers, wine and malt beverage sales, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. Sunday night, 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. through 1 a.m. And then Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. So on-premise retailers, all beverages. So when you go to your bar, this is what I'm talking about on-premise retailers, your bars, your restaurants, and different places where you consume alcohol on the licensed premise. It's Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. Sunday night, 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. And then Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. requires food service except at a festival, fair, winery, sports venue, or concert. So you may sell until 2 a.m. on any day with a late hour certificate. So prohibited hours continue for on-premise retailers, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 12:15 a.m. And excuse me, this is for consumption. So these are for allowing consumption. So once you make that sale, you can allow people to consume on premise from 7 a.m. to 12:15 a.m. On Sunday, 12:15 a.m. to 1:15 a.m. And then on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12:15 a.m. So the reason why we give you this 15-minute grace period, if somebody makes a purchase at 11:59, we give a 15-minute grace period to allow them to consume that alcoholic beverage before they leave the premises. Consumption may occur until 2:15 a.m. on any day at locations that have a late hour certificate. Recently, there was a change in the law, and hotel guests may consume alcoholic beverages at the hotel bar at any time, 24 hours a day. So violation for sales or consumption. So there are criminal consequences associated with selling during prohibited hours. For the individual who sells, serves, delivers, it is a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by a fine up to $4,000 and up to 1 year in jail. The administrative consequences for the license or permit holder for a first-time violation, you could be suspended for selling alcoholic beverages for 5 to 7 days, or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per suspension day. So there's certain things you can do to prevent violations. Number one, you can pick up drinks from patrons with plenty of time to spare before meeting the cutoff time for consumption. You can monitor your sales of alcoholic beverages prior to cutoff time, so patrons aren't rushing to purchase more drinks. Collect unattended alcoholic beverages prior to cutoff time, and use a bar time clock by setting your bar clock maybe 10 to 15 minutes early. So we'll next move into narcotics. Controlled substances, narcotics includes controlled substances, marijuana, or synthetic cannabinoids. And what I mean by controlled substances, any type of opioids, pills, prescription medications, those are considered controlled substances. So a retailer may not engage or permit on the premises possession of a narcotic or an equipment used or designed for the administering of a narcotic. So what that means is you can't allow somebody on your licensed premises to smoke marijuana, to do cocaine at the bar. You can't knowingly allow that. Or the implements used to smoke marijuana, if it's a marijuana pipe, and if one of my guys come in and there's a marijuana pipe sitting on the bar, and it's they can tell that it's been used to smoke marijuana, and it's got burnt marijuana inside, and the bartender sees it, you may be able to be held responsible for that. So that's what they mean by equipment. The administrative consequences: first-time violation, suspended from selling alcoholic beverages for 25 to 35 days, or pay a fine at $300 per suspension day. So for first-time violation, if your employees of the location possess, or they allow someone else to possess, or they allow sales of or narcotics on the licensed premises, could be a 25-day fine. 25-day suspension, or a $7,500 fine. Remember, $300 per suspension day. Employees should be diligent about making sure employees are not possessing, using, or selling narcotics. So have your managers, make sure your managers are making contact with their employees on a daily basis. Just talking to them every day. Maybe the employee comes in, they may smell like marijuana, and it may cause your manager to ask you a few questions, and it could prevent a violation. Permittees and employees should monitor patrons to make sure they're not possessing, using, or selling narcotics. I would say go in and make sure you have your staff checking your bathrooms on a regular basis. Based on my experience, that's where I've seen a lot. That's where I have seen a lot of narcotics consumed inside your restrooms, because typically there's not an employee in the restroom. If you do find narcotics, or you find your patrons or employees in possession of narcotics, selling, using, I would encourage you to contact your local law enforcement. So we're going to move on to breaches of the peace. There are two types of breaches of the peace: aggravated breaches and simple. Generally, license or permit holders must not allow breaches to occur, and they must file or report these breaches as soon as possible to TABC. So when we say allow breaches of the peace, we mean if people are arguing inside your bar and you do nothing about it, they've been arguing for 2 hours, and then later on somebody gets attacked, killed, shot, stabbed, or hurt, or a fight breaks out, because you did nothing about it, you could be held responsible. If one of your employees assaults someone on a licensed premise, the permit holder may be held responsible, and we will determine that after an investigation. And so when we say licensed premise, we mean the grounds, buildings, vehicles, appurtenances, or anything pertaining to the grounds. It could include any adjacent premises if they're directly or indirectly under control of the same person. So if the permit holder has parking next door, and it's generally used for his bar, it could include a field used for concerts that's next door, although it may be a separate address. It could include a building used for storage of equipment, which could be next door, but not on the licensed premise. This does not include public sidewalks or that are adjacent to the licensed premise. So we're not going to hold you responsible for people walking up and down the sidewalks. They have not been in your bar, and they get into a fight inside of your locations. We're not going to hold you responsible for that. So aggravated breach could be a shooting, a stabbing, a murder, or an incident involving serious bodily injury. These are breaches regardless of whether law enforcement or emergency medical services respond. So if a fight breaks out and they leave prior to police or EMS arriving, it is still considered a breach. And so you must report these to TABC within 24 hours. So just remember, a shooting, stabbing, murder, or an incident involving serious bodily injury must be reported to TABC within 24 hours. So simple breaches of the peace: when law enforcement or emergency medical services respond, whether this could be just because of a sick person in the bar, or if a patron calls the police because someone vandalized their car, that is still considered a breach, and you have to report those to TABC. If a disturbance occurs, if someone just pushes another patron, and when I say disturbance, if you have two people who are arguing, and it escalates maybe to a push or, just slap, nobody's injured, that is still considered a breach. If somebody discharges a firearm on a licensed premise or displays a weapon, or if a person destroys the permit holder's property, if the incident is reported by the permittee or licensee to law enforcement agency, you have to report this as a breach. These breaches must be reported within 5 days. So if you allow a breach to occur by failing to separate or remove arguing parties from your licensed premise, if you have not enough staff to handle a large crowd, if you have a crowd of 300 people and you have one bartender working, you could be held responsible for a breach. If you fail to call the police or someone who is stabbed, cut, or shot on your licensed premise, and you fail to call the police and then you try to clean up after the event, you can be held accountable for a breach. Failure to act when a patron has asked you to do so. If a patron is telling you that they're being harassed by an intoxicated person and you fail to address the situation and then a fight breaks out later on, you could be held responsible for a breach. So there are administrative consequences for allowing a simple or allowing an aggravated breach. For a simple breach, it is first time violation is 3 to 18 days or pay a fine at $300 per day. Our fines are always $300 per day. And so for an aggravated breach, you could be suspended or selling alcoholic beverages for a first time violation for 25 to 35 days or pay a fine at a rate of $300 per day. So again, if it's 25 days that we offer and you accept, you can pay a $7,500 fine in lieu of the suspension. So preventing breaches of the peace, monitor alcohol consumption. From my experience, a lot of breaches occur because patrons are intoxicated. Monitor patrons for aggressive behavior or language towards others. Separate or remove said patrons. I would encourage you to call the police if someone's being aggressive and let them deal with it. So you're, number one, you don't want your staff hurt, or you don't want your staff accused of escalating a situation. Try to locate responsible parties to take care of instigators. So if they came with someone, a friend, a family member, sometimes those friends or family members can de-escalate and remove those persons from your licensed premise. So ensure you contact local law enforcement. If a situation escalates or started to escalate, please call your local law enforcement. And then last but not least, consider banning patrons who are continual problems. So if a patron is a problem every week he's coming in and he's causing an issue, every week he's trying to fight someone, consider banning that person from coming to your establishment. So the reporting requirements. So you must file a breach report with TABC as soon as possible after the breach occurs on a licensed premise. And again, this includes the grounds, all buildings, vehicles, or appurtenances pertaining to the grounds, including any adjacent premises if they're directly or indirectly under control. So that means any parking lots, fields used for concerts or events, building used for storage of equipment. If you have two of your employees who get into a fight in your storage building, that's not a part of your licensed premise, but it's your storage building. You need to report that breach to TABC. So again, this does not include public sidewalks adjacent to your licensed property. So some people are walking by and they get into an argument or a fight, and they have not been inside your bar. It had nothing to do with your bar. That is not considered a breach for you, and you do not have to report that. Aggravated breaches must be reported within 24 hours. So remember, anything shooting, stabbing, cutting, or serious bodily injury within 24 hours. Simple breaches, a slap, a push, argument, destruction of property, police being called to the licensed premise, or ambulance being called to the licensed premise, that must be reported within 5 days. So you can report breaches via AIMS, via email, or by fax. We prefer that you do it some type of way electronically, either through email or through AIMS, because then you have a record yourself of reporting said breaches. So the reports must include certain information. It has to include the date, the time of the incident, the name and address of the premises where the incident occurred, a brief description of the incident, names of the law enforcement agencies who were called or responded, and the names of any witnesses if you have that information. So administrative consequences for failing to report a breach, you can be suspended for in between 2 to 12 days, depending on the situation, or pay a $300 fine per suspension day in lieu of the suspension. You're not liable for not filing a timely report if you can prove or you can demonstrate that you had no knowledge of the incident, nor in the exercise of reasonable care, you should have had knowledge. So if your bar is closed and someone gets robbed in your parking lot at 3 a.m. in the morning and there was no staff there and you didn't know about it, we will not hold you responsible for not reporting that. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. It occurs if someone is controlled by violence, threat of violence, psychological coercion. A person has lost their free will or free movement. If that person is exploited economically and is paid nothing beyond subsistence. A person can be trafficked for labor, commercial sex acts, or other services. TABC will suspend or cancel the license of any location for violations of human trafficking. So you can help prevent human trafficking by posting a human trafficking sign. Most retailers are required to do so, to post this sign on their licensed premise, and the sign states that obtaining forced labor or services is a crime under Texas law. And you can report suspicious activity at iWatch Texas Texas hotline at 1-844-643-2251 or online at iwatchtexas.org. You can also learn how to identify human victims at the PolarisProject.org human trafficking /recognize the signs. So just remember PolarisProject.org. That's where you can learn how to identify the signs of human trafficking. So presentation summary, please contact your local TABC office for more information. Personnel are available for more in-depth education for retailers via the Retailer Education and Awareness Program. This is not seller server training. It is something separate that we teach. There is no certification for this. This is just extra training that we in enforcement and our audit division will be happy to come to your location and put on. You can call 512-206-3333 and request a REAP program be taught at your licensed location. So if you have any questions about this presentation, live viewers, you can ask through the chat feature of this video conference, and all the others, you can send an email to stakeholder@tabc.texas.gov. So if you have any questions, we're going to go to our live presentation now. Send us your recommendations again on topics that you would like addressed in future TABC talks at stakeholder@tabc.texas.gov. This will help us improve this program by participating. If you participate in a short survey following the presentation for live viewers. So Gary, will the slides be available? Mr. Gary Huddleston has a question, and he says, will the slides be available after the presentation to share with others? The slides will not be available, but the presentation will be available via our YouTube page. This presentation has been recorded for posterity's sake, and you can go and view this presentation or have your employees view this presentation anytime you would like. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Would you please discuss firearms on the premise or in the possession of a permit holder? You know, we recently had, the law was changed. So there have been some recent changes as far as blue signs and red signs and all that. So permit holders can possess firearms on the licensed premise, just like anyone else now. If your bar is over 51%, you still the permit, the gun owners still have to have a license for a bar that's over 51%. They can't walk in and open carry inside a bar that's 51%, but they can carry inside of restaurants, blue signs. They can carry at restaurants, they can carry at places that are not 51%. So Mr. Hill has a question about delivering alcohol while using a third-party service. Who is responsible for that sale? The bartender, the driver, or the third-party service establishment? So it is not the bartender, it's going to be the person who delivers. So once the sale is made on an app or however it's made, when that person delivering is delivering, they have to ask for identification. So if they deliver to a minor, the person delivering will be held responsible criminally. The third-party service will be held responsible administratively. So the administrative fine is the same as for selling or serving on a licensed premise. It's 8 to 12 days, or pay a fine at $300 per day. So for the seller, for the person who delivered alcohol to the minor, is a Class A misdemeanor, up to $1,000 fine and up to 1 year in jail. Thank you for that question, Mr. Hill. If you have any more specific questions about the guns, I know I didn't get really specific on the gun situation. Please contact me and I can go over with you in person. Over the phone, and you can reach me at, and I'm gonna, at oliver.johnson@tabc.texas.gov, oliver.johnson@tabc.texas.gov. If you have any specific situations that you want to talk about, you can reach me at my email. And if I don't know the answers to the specific situations, just to say it's an incident that occurred in Dallas or it occurred somewhere in West Texas, I can get you in contact with someone who can ask you your questions, who can answer your questions. I'm sorry. Are there any more questions out there that you would like answered? Okay, I don't see any other questions. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. It has been my pleasure to sit and talk with you and to go over this presentation. I hope it was informative. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us here at headquarters or your local office, and we will do what we can to answer your questions. If we don't have your answer right then, we may say, I don't have the answer. I will contact you back with the answer, or we may redirect you to someone who can answer your question. So with that said, I'm going to end this presentation. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for attending.